Living History, American Combat Stories as told by those who were there.
General Ken Miles was a lieutenant colonel, F-100 squadron commander, flying over 300 low-level ground support missions in Vietnam.
I had a great fighter squadron. All in all, while I was there, we didn't lose anybody. And we flew over, my squadron flew over 10,000 combat missions with basically 19 guys. The F-100 was a real workhorse of Vietnam, South Vietnam anyway, because it was in great support for both the Marines and the Army. We took off, and he was flying wing, I was leading. There was a Special Forces camp being attacked by a North Vietnamese regiment, Special Forces camp, who were manned by Green Berets. Normally there'd be about 8 Green Berets in each Special Forces camp. They were triangular on the side, they were formed in a triangle, and they normally had repatriated Vietnamese VC. They were called Chu Hois, and they'd have maybe 400 repatriated VC in each of the camps under the control of the 8 Green Berets, Army Green Berets. Well, this particular camp was Tan Le Chom, and it was located about 80 miles to the northwest of Saigon. There was a forward air controller airborne above the Special Forces camp, and so they put me in contact with him, and I said, well, where are you and what's the weather like? And he said, well, it's terrible. The ceiling was probably about an 800-foot ragged ceiling with rain. And I said, well, what's the terrain like? He said, well, there's hills on both sides, and there's some mountains there. Well, we're at 25,000 feet, and we got all this weather beneath us, and it's dark. It's about 1:30 in the morning. So I said, I don't see how we can come down without hitting any of the hills or anything. And the fact came back and said, well, these guys are in real trouble. He said, the 400 Chu Hois that were in the camp all took off when the fighting started, and it just left the 8 Green Berets against about 1,500 North Vietnamese. And he said, if you don't come down and help, they're going to be annihilated. So I looked over at my wingman in the dark, we had our lights on, and we're cruising along about 450 knots or so, 480. And I said, well, you want to give it a try, J.O.? And he said, sure, boss, let's go. Pulled the throttles back, and down we went. Into the clouds, into the rain. And as luck would have it, good Lord had his hand on my shoulder. We broke out underneath at about 800 feet, doing 480 knots, and there was hills on both sides of us, and somehow we'd missed flying into these mountains. You could see the Special Forces camp, and it looked like sort of something out of a John Wayne movie where they had the wagons all circled and the Indians were all shooting at it, because you could see the gunfire all firing at it from all sides. I dropped one napalm can right at the very front end of the entrance to the Special Forces camp, where they had the fence. The fence was pretty high and had a gate there, and that lit up and got a fire going, and then we could see what was going on. In the meantime, of course, we had some pretty heavy anti-aircraft firing at us. So I thought my first effort was to silence that. So I went in and I dropped a 500-pound bomb on the anti-aircraft position and blew it up. Then J.O. went in and strafed a bunch of the people who were trying to climb the walls of the Special Forces camp. I came back around and dropped another 500-pounder right at the very beginning of the camp. Continued to strafe and shoot the people off the wall until we ran out of ammunition. Well, we didn't have anything left, so when we were totally expended, we left and flew back to climbed back out, flew back to Fan Rang, and landed, and gotten two new airplanes that had been uploaded. And since we knew where things were, took back off and went back down there about 2:33 in the morning and did it all over again. And so that's as a result of that, we actually turned the tide, and the Arvin division left. But of the 8 Green Berets in there were 7 of them were wounded, and although they all survived, but they were wounded, and one Chief Master Sergeant was not. And about a day later, I got a call, and they said they want you to go down to Tonley Cham. So we got in a transport airplane, and they flew us down, and we landed. When I landed, I was met by this big burly Green Beret, and he hugged me, and he had tears in his eyes, and he said, we saved him. We actually saved him.
Fighting soldiers from the sky, fearless men who jump and die, men who mean just what they say, the brave men of the Green Beret. 100 men will test today, but only 3 in the Green Beret.
You may contact the Palm Springs Air Museum at 760-778-6262 for more information concerning the Veterans History Project. We're happy to interview any veteran or civilian who participated in any of our country's military conflicts, and will provide a DVD of the interview for the family.